Alright guys, this is an update video for those of you on Patreon. I wanted to update you on the boat progress as well as just what's happening with my other videos. So I'm going to do that now. I will probably release this video to all of YouTube in a couple of weeks, but wanted to show you on Patreon first what's going on because I really do appreciate your support. Speaking of which, I want to thank Dawn, our latest member, who's the latest patron, to join a couple of days ago. So what's happening with the vlog? First of all, you've been noticing recently I've been putting out almost exclusively the videos from the Mexico motorcycle trip. Just to give you the timeline of that, I actually started that trip in December 2020, over a year ago. So I'm getting through that footage now. And a lot of footage that I also have was for the entire year of 2021, because what we did, it wasn't just one long trip in one stage. We did several stages of the trip where we would ride the motorcycles to another city, and then after like a week, because we could only really take a week or so off of work at a time, so we would go to another city. We would store the bikes there. A lot of times it was with people we knew. Luckily, like Juan, his uncle lives in Mazatlan, so our first trip was from Guanajuato to Mazatlan. We left the bikes there in his uncle's garage for a few months. And then when we were able to get a little more time off of work, we went down, flew back down to Mazatlan, continued the trip up through Sinaloa, then over to Cabo. We then left the bikes in Cabo for a few months, flew back to Cabo, and then rode the bikes from Cabo to Tijuana. So it wasn't one long continuous trip. It was multiple stages of the trip, and only for a week at a time throughout the year of 2021. So that gives you the update there and why I'm trying to get through all that footage. Now, I want to the thing is, I have so much footage of so much stuff that I want to share with you all. I also want to have these videos for when let's say 20 or 30 years down the road, I just want to look back and have these memories. And I don't really care if I don't get too many views. I'm over that at this point. I'm over looking at like the views and stuff like that. I just want to put out videos that I want to put out. And I want to hopefully inspire a few people that are maybe interested in the motorcycle stuff. I have had a couple of people tell me like they really like that type of content, and I know it's different than the other stuff I've been doing, but nonetheless, I'm doing it, and I want to continue until I get that footage done. I have a ton of other boating footage to get through. I have the trip I took to Greece in October. I went with several other YouTube channels. We did a charter cruise for a week, and I have a ton of footage of all that Greek sailing, which was just awesome. And I'm going to put that up as well. Related to the boat work, I have been doing so much boat work, it's crazy. And in fact, I want to recognize, I guess, people who, when I first bought this boat, who told me how crazy I was for buying a boat with so much woodwork that I had, the bright work that I would have to do, the varnishing and all that. The hull of the boat is fiberglass, but all of the bright work on top, on the cabin top and on the deck and everything, is wood that has required so much work with regard to sanding and varnishing. And in fact, if you don't stay up on the varnish, within like a few months it'll start getting discolored, and it's really crazy. I mean, it's a full-time job almost to keep up with it. So I will acknowledge that people were right, and if you aren't someone who's like retired and able to spend like 2 days a week at least full-time working on your boat, it might not be a great idea to get a wooden boat like this. Nonetheless, I've been doing these projects in stages, and the biggest project right now is the teak deck removal. So you all know from when I bought this boat that it had a teak deck that was in pretty bad shape. Pardon the airplane noise. This always happens here in the harbor. I'll let it pass. One thing, you can't beat the weather out here right now. In California, we've had a heat wave that it's been like 80s, in the 80s out here for a week. It's been crazy. I think it's supposed to cool down a little bit this week. Today's Monday, the day after the Super Bowl. Anyway, so back to the boat deck project. The wood deck on this, I was trying to figure out everything I could to salvage the deck. I think that a teak deck really is what makes a boat like this look really classic. But after getting bids for replacing the teak deck and doing all kinds of repairs, it was crazy. It was like $20,000 to replace the deck. which I couldn't afford. The deck it wasn't really salvageable because it was getting to be so thin and brittle. You could actually take your hand, and just kind of chip off big pieces of the deck because it was so thin. So that was a big problem. I decided the most cost-effective and probably maintenance-free for the future would be to take off the entire teak deck, replace that, well, not even replace it, take off the entire teak deck, put epoxy. Luckily it's fiberglass. This is a fiberglass deck, so the wood is off here. Cover it with epoxy, and then put paint and then the all grip or some type of a grip sand on the deck. So I'll tell you the process that's been quite interesting that I'm planning to make a more detailed video about this process. So there's a guy named David who I've been working with who does this stuff professionally. David has a helper that's been helping him. So on the weekends, usually David and I will meet over here at the boat. The first step was to take off all of the old woods. That was like the demolition stage. That was complicated. You have to go in there with like a wood chisel, and you're taking off the entire deck piece by piece. A lot of it would just break off within a couple of inches, so it was like very tedious. And the probably even bigger ordeal was that there's all these I think it's bronze screws throughout the deck. That's what was used originally in 1965, and the screws would just break off. So you try to take your screwdriver and take out the screws, and it would just break. So really the solution we came to was working around the screws, taking off the entire deck, and then you would end up with a bunch of screws sitting there, and then you try to take them out, and then they would either break, or you might be able to get your pliers on there and take off the screw. So that was quite tedious and complicated. Finally got all the screws out, or at least chiseled down to level with the deck where we could sand over it. Then the next stage was, it had a bunch of almost like black tar kind of stuff that was probably a glue or adhesive that was underneath the decking on top of this fiberglass. So just to kind of give you it was wood teak deck. Under that was like a black adhesive tar, kind of almost like a roofing tar kind of deal. And then you had this fiberglass deck underneath, and that's the main structure of this deck. So after getting the wood teak deck off, we had to go through with a sanding, orbital sander, sand the entire thing, get it to be fresh and kind of, not white, but kind of like get all the gunk off of it. And then it was a matter of, cleaning. You probably noticed these lines in the deck that actually makes it look like there's still wood, but that is just lines that have been cut into the fiberglass originally when they first put down the deck. So that's what that is. It makes it look like it still has the planks on there, but there's no planks. This is all the fiberglass. Anyway, so we've sanded it down, got into these grooves, and sanded it. Then we went through the most recent weekend. We came through with acetone and cleaned out all of the deck, cleaned out the dust, cleaned out all these cracks. That way we could lay down a layer of epoxy. We just did a sample piece because we were running out of time yesterday. Now it is hardened and seems good to go. We're going to epoxy the entire deck on top of this fiberglass. And once that's structurally sound and everything's covered and all these holes are filled in, we're then going to, oh, by the way, the epoxy was there's like a epoxy filler to structurally make it really strong, and to thicken it. So that's what we used. And then after that's all done, we will sand it down, make it smooth, and we'll put a primer paint. And then we'll come back after the primer paint and put a coat of white paint on. And then once the white paint is on, we'll come back and we'll do some little, you've probably seen them on boats. They're almost like, larger spaces that are put into the deck that you can put the all grip or like a grip sand throughout in a nice little pattern. So it looks nice. And that's the plan of action. So it's been crazy, super labor intensive, a lot of time consuming. That's what we're doing right now to the deck. That's the update on the boat. Just wanted to kind of give you guys that update, and mostly, like I said, to the Patreon members. But that's it. Yeah, I'm gonna have more motorcycle videos, but I'm thinking instead of just going full force with motorcycle only, I'm gonna throw in other videos from time to time that I'm doing currently, like current situations. So that's what I'm doing today, and that's it. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned next time for the next motorcycle trip. I've probably got I'm working on something with a friend of mine who does boat. Well, I'm now a boat salesman, for those of you who didn't know. and I'm a licensed boat sale person, like a boat broker, but like a real estate agent, but for boats. And I'm working with my friend Ethan, who's also a boat broker, and he and I are talking about it. There's a listing he has. It's like a $1.5 million mega yacht, and he and I want to do like a walkthrough video of that and show you guys, because I think it would be pretty interesting. So that's it. That's the update for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Check it.